So,
Excellent. Congratulations.
Fantastic.
so we'll see what happens there. That's all I have. Any issues with the agenda? Anyone wants to change around the agenda? All right, anyone with conflict of interest or been approached by a lobbyist that needs to be disclosed? All right. CORC report. Dorothy, I think our process is working. So very nice, thank you. Let's see. But we moved staff up down. Do I have an old agenda?
I don't know why that's still like that.
So staff updates when we get down to
Online is correct.
in progress. Okay, I have an old one then. All right, public comments. Any public comments? Right, no public comments. Let's go down consent agenda. FC1. Michael, do you want FC1? You're muted.
Yes, please.
Okay. FC2.
Michael,
Yes.
Michael one.
Michael.
So,
Okay. PC1. Accepted. PC2. Accepted. PC3.
Gelfand.
Yeah, I wanted that also. PC4.
Same.
Okay.
Will the items not pulled on consent agenda?
Okay, I need a second on that.
Second it.
Second by Bill Huckel. Dorothy, go ahead, Paulus, please.
Bill Hukio,
Here. Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Michael, you're up for FC1.
Thank you. Item number 20, the Melaleuca card readers. I know that there was a request for additional information. I read the follow-up and thank you for that. My question is that we still have these coming up on a regular basis. And it would seem that because these are access determinative, that there should be a better checklist by the district at the planning stage so that we're not coming back afterwards.
Yeah, I kind of have the same opinion, and I use the analogy HVAC. We wouldn't expect or want the HVAC engineer to go out during the rough-in stage and find 10 more diffusers that he wants to add in because couldn't read the plans during design to figure out where they should go. I mean, I think it was, 27 card readers or something? It was a lot. I mean, no, we don't control security, but they need to have somebody that's knowledgeable enough that can find 95% of what needs to be installed the first time.
And this is a reoccurring issue. I may sound repetitive on this because I keep bringing it up, but this is not a one-off situation.
And all we can do is provide that feedback to staff, and staff can address it however, or if we feel strongly enough, you can go to your board representative. I suppose as CORC, a motion could be made that, we really think this needs to be addressed from a better design point of view to minimize the field changes.
I'd be willing to make that motion.
I do know, if you don't mind, I'd like to take it to school police and they can give you a response back. I do know that they've had staffing challenges for about a year now. They had a couple people that were integral with the design process left and it got dumped on one person. So they're literally doing 3 people's jobs and that's one of them is to review the plans. So not an excuse, but it is an issue. So they are in the process of getting more people involved to try to alleviate some of these issues. So they're working on it. I don't know their exact plan and staffing because it's not my department, but I could reach out and get some feedback if you'd like.
Michael, I guess you can make your motion based on that we have concerns of this being an ongoing issue, and we'd like to hear back from the department responsible for this as to how they're going to address it.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so was that your motion?
Yes,
You want-
and
you wanna put
Dorothy,
that as-
I appreciate your comments and all, and the staffing issues. The difficulty, though, is that this has been going on for years, literally.
Understand.
So it's not just a recent personnel issue, but thank you.
Has this been seconded yet? If not,
No.
I'll second.
It has not. You want to
I'll
second that?
I'll second it.
All right, any other comments or discussion? Dorothy, you clear on what the motion was?
Not completely, but I'll figure it out.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and poll us.
Okay. Bill Hukill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes,
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
All right, Michael, FC2.
thank you. I also saw the follow-up. There was a question and a follow-up regarding the.
Excuse me a minute. We still need to move FC1 forward.
What we just did.
What we just did.
Oh,
No,
that
we
was my motions. Virginia,
No,
you're correct.
Yeah, the motion was the other motion. It wasn't to move it, so. You're moving it forward?
Okay, you're gonna have to explain it to me then.
Yeah, I don't understand that, Virginia. We had a motion by Michael, a second by you to approve FC1 with those comments.
I didn't hear the approve FC1 with the comment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what we were doing. And Michael, you didn't have anything else on FC1?
Correct, that was it. Thank you.
So there was a confusing motion, but okay.
Yeah, essentially our motion was to accept it, but with the comment going back, that staff needs to
Okay.
come back telling us what the plan of action is to minimize these after the fact changes.
Okay, I think we all got the wording now.
Okay. All right, FC2, Michael.
Apparently another person had concerns regarding the over 2 years, almost 3 year additional time on this. And I read the follow-up and I thank the staff for that. But it's still, I still don't understand the seemingly excessive number of days that are asked for this project.
Oh, Michael, I mean, I won't answer, but the way I read it, it's all the same Palm Beach County Water Utilities Company that always causes problems and delays. Notoriously, every project. I can say that, staff can't. So when I read that was the problem, it was just like, all right, we really don't have a choice.
Is
Jason,
there-
share if you want.
Is there some specific questions or do you want a summary? Because there was the letter. Do you have specific questions to the letter that didn't look correct? Or I understand your concerns. 900 days jumped out at all of us,
Yeah, is this systemic? Or
Yes.
not just-
Yes. Systemic from that one governmental department.
And private industry isn't banging on the county's door on this also?
They are.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't do anything.
All right, I've said my piece in a time, so let's move on to the next one.
All right, you need to make a motion for FC2 then.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Second by Mike Guida. Comments or questions? Dorothy?
Bill Hukill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes,
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, PC3, Michael, you pulled it and I pulled it.
go ahead.
Two questions I had. It's coming out of construction contingency. It's not a sales tax referendum project.
Correct.
Did the board approve the new program needs that bumped the budget up big time?
They've been involved. It went through to the superintendent and got his input early on in this because this did start out, we didn't expect this much work. And honestly, a little bit more time should have been spent in that investigation purpose before we went out for an RFQ, so we had it all worked out. But we hired the architect and contractor to go out there and really assess the building and see what needed to be done. And it was a lot more of of everything that was involved. So it's the same components that we had involved originally. It's just a lot more of it. We looked at starting with the air handlers, and we looked in it that the ductwork had mold in it. So then we went to the mold, had to take that out, and then you got to redesign it. So it just kind of snowballed into it. But when it comes around, this is really what we feel needs to be done for that facility. So it's not excessive work. It's in line with the scope. It's just a lot more than where we started. And we understand that.
Okay. My other question is coming out of capital contingency. Maybe my question is for Leanne as to how capital contingency works, how it stays funded, what kind of balance is there that, we know we're not draining it down because it'll be needed for other projects. Leanne?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Capital contingency is the big reserve. Well, it's not as big as sales tax reserve right now, but it's the main reserve in the capital budget. It is there to deal with emergencies. We tapped it when there was tornado damage at Dwyer. We tapped it when there was last year a high pressure hose attached to an temporary air conditioning unit blew, and there was flooding and had to have a lot of work done before school was opened. We ended up getting reimbursed from builder risk insurance. It's there for hurricanes if we have to rebuild a school. We put money into it throughout the capital plan, especially in the outer years. I'll look at the budget and I'm looking at the capital plan right now, and there's one year where we add $50 or $60 million to it. By the time we get 6 years down the road, we're going to have needs for those monies. So we have a lot of money showing up in future years for capital contingency. Currently, we have about $120 million in capital contingency, and then we have another 60 or 80 million. I'm sorry, I don't have the breakout in front of me. We have some money that's in capital contingency specifically to help projects in FY 26 and 27. So there's money there. It gets replenished whenever there is excess interest reserves, whenever projects that aren't funded with sales tax are closed out. We add money to it through the capital planning process when needed. But sometimes the number gets too high, and it's a balancing act as to what's too high and what's too low. There's not official guidance like there is for the reserve in the operating budget. But we had a lot of interest earnings in FY24, and we had more impact fees come in than we thought. So when we did the capital plan, we actually decided that the West Acreage Elementary School that's being built out in Arden, we planned to borrow for that. We chose not to, instead took money out of capital contingency and funded it that way as part of the planning process. There was extra money. I didn't want to put it in capital contingency at that point. We decided not to borrow for that school. We decided not to go ahead and use sales tax for Roosevelt Full Service because we had extra money, and we had extra money in sales tax. We earned $24 million of interest last year in the sales tax reserve. So capital contingency is always a balancing act, and we add money to it when there's extra revenue, one-time revenue will go in there. And then we replenish it as needed as part of the capital planning process. Does that answer your question, Mr. Porter?
It does. When we have a non-sales tax project close out, and we might get, let's say, $1 million back from the CM based on the CM process, does that go back into capital contingency?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. And I work with the facilities department. They're always asking, can we have money from capital contingency for something else? So it's a good question that you asked. It's bad for me that you asked too, because they can see how much money is there. But we have a really good relationship between finance and facilities, and they ask, and sometimes we can give them extra money. Sometimes we say, no, you've got to live within the budget. This is a project that the board specifically asked for, and if the board approves it, it would be funded from capital contingency.
And it did come up during schematic design. Once we did that assessment, hey, we're going to need some more money. So that's when we went to Leanne. Is this the best way to go about it? And
Okay.
So
the staff members with the biggest welts on their wrist from your yardstick are the ones that have asked for the most money.
I'm going to hide my wrist.
All right, Michael, I have nothing else.
Yeah, I was following up on that, and you've answered a lot of the questions. Thank you very much. As a follow-up to that, my clients are going through the same exact types of balancing issues with reserves and differentiating between casualty and catastrophic losses and deferred maintenance. And this seems to be more of a deferred maintenance and additional program needs. Is there a policy on approaching that so that it's easier for you when these things come up? Because it seems like it's a repetitive issue.
Is that question coming to me or to Michael?
Well, probably to you, Leanne, I would imagine.
Okay, when we're talking about the funding, when we see, generally, I work, as you know, I work very closely with them. I have a heads up. I know what's coming in most cases. I know where they're going to need more money. And we try very hard to have that loaded in the capital plan. So it goes through the capital planning process. This came up after the final number came up after the capital plan was finalized. So that's when it has to come into the board. There aren't really guidelines. I work very hard to protect that reserve, knowing that if there is a hurricane, if there's a major catastrophic event, yes, we'd be able to go to FEMA, and we are self-insured. We do have some property insurance for hurricanes. It's probably not enough, but it's all we can get in the marketplace. So we know there's a reserve in the general fund that deals with the immediate getting rid of debris, the debris removal, securing the facilities, and now we have an insurance reserve specifically to deal with money that is needed because the insurance and FEMA. There are some schools that FEMA will not reimburse us for. We got FEMA reimbursement on a school years ago with Francis, Jean, and Wilma. They will not provide money for those schools again. So we have an insurance policy specifically for that and money set aside for that, and the rest would fall to capital contingency. So we try to balance it. The tricky part is how much would it be and how would we fund it? And even if FEMA is going to reimburse us, we still have a little bit of money that we're owed from Francis, Jean, and Wilma. It takes a long time to close those out, and we know that. We know that. So I'd like that money to be, that reserve to be as high as it can be. But at the same time, we're now going out to the public saying we need a sales tax referendum for maintenance, and we have this big reserve. So it's balancing how much to be in the reserve versus the needs of the schools. So that is a balancing act, and I wish I had good guidance on it. Each individual government, and I guess every company works through that on their own. So I tend to say as much as possible, and Heather Frederick is the one saying it needs to be less than that. Let's spend some of it. So we go back and forth, even within finance, on what that number should be. And sometimes it spikes up at the end of the year. At the end of the year, when we get final interest revenues, final taxable values come in. The final tax revenue for the year comes in July. The year ended in June. So we're already through the year before we get all the money that we thought. And we're usually, this year, I think we were over by about 100,000. It was really close. So we never know what that's going to be. And as much as I'd like to say I can predict the interest revenue, I have no idea what the Fed's going to do even next week, how much they're going to cut interest rates. So we tend to be very conservative. And at the end of the year, we have some extra money. And that's a good thing to have extra money and then decide how to use it the following year. So short answer, Mr. Gelfand, I don't have a good way of doing it. Every agency does it on their own. And I think every agency has their own way of doing it based on their staff. And, we know how often construction, and they don't come to us very often for capital contingency right now. Because we have the sales tax reserve and most of our projects are funded with sales tax. If you went back 10 years ago, we were tapping capital contingency all the time. It just depends on the nature of the work and how good our team is at managing those budgets and how often do they need more money. Sorry, there's a lot of factors and I didn't give you a good answer.
No, I understand because I see it in my clients' lives also. So, Francis, these are the hurricanes from
2004,
4 and 5. It's not very much. It's not very much, but it's still out there, and it irks me every year at the end of the year trying to do the accounting entries for it.
So my daughter has made it through high school, college, law school, a Master of Laws program, an internship, a job, and now has a 1.5-year-old. The life cycle. All right,
That
so
900 days doesn't seem so bad, does it?
Yeah, I will tell you, it's not very much money at this point. It's a small amount. It's just enough that every year it comes up and I said, we have to do this again. There's still a little bit of money out there. And at some point, the district's going to write it off, that receivable just needs to go away. But there's still a little bit out there. And we are going through a new process this year where we're getting pre-approved. We went through and got pre-approved by FEMA. That's something that's new and available for governments to give them a lot of information up front in case there's a storm so that we would be able to be reimbursed faster. So we have a couple of people that attend the hurricane conference and meet with FEMA. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make that time frame shorter in the future.
As you're looking at this, and particularly fighting off the gulls at your gate, if you would, while the amount may seem, it is a lot of money, no question about it. I'll just make the observation that the capital footprint of the district continues to increase, as well as the costs of repair and renovation. So as you keep adding to that, I'll just say the hurricane or the contingency fund, it does need to expand for that.
Right.
And pushing them all off on that. I am concerned about the changes in scope, but it seems that this does make some sense here. And I'll just add my concerns as I have in the past, generally beyond the finance side, as to what we are doing to try to protect our students and staff, especially as I've lost track of all the assaults on schools, students and staff. I keep forgetting the names now. It's a horrible thing. But folks with these huge rifles keep coming on in, and school districts are looking backwards and saying, what should we have done? And I've been told repeatedly, ain't our problem, but I'm not going to accept that. So I'm just hoping out there that the district is looking at those areas that have seen incursions and, looking at what else can we do, or if it is an outside problem that the district cannot control, that we make it clear to our leaders in Tallahassee and Washington that there needs to be some other, I'll say it's systemic change if we're going to protect our students and our staff. Thank you.
All right, Michael, you had pulled this. You want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. No objection to the district, to the school board considering.
Second.
Second by Virginia. Any comments, questions? All right, Dorothy, poll us, please.
Bill Hookhill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
All right, I think we got you in, Michael, under your time limit here.
He still had PC4.
Wait, one more. Yeah.
I thought we did PC4.
I thought he pulled that.
It was PC4.
Yeah.
That was
That's my alarm. I will let you don't have to listen to me one more time. I've got to scoot to this other meeting, but thank you very much. And I appreciate everyone advancing so I could participate. And I hope it wasn't too painful for everyone else. Have a great rest of the week, folks. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Dorothy, that was PC4.
No,
Yeah, we had already done PC3.
PC3 was pulled. I thought we were discussing PC3.
Yeah, we were.
That was three?
Was South Intensive. PC.
All right, that was a long discussion then. Okay.
Manatee.
So Michael would pull PC4 also, but he's not here. So,
do we need to vote on that?
yeah, we have a quorum still, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If we still have a quorum, then does somebody want to make a motion PC4 is acceptable to move forward?
Move forward.
Okay, Virginia is the first. Need a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Michael Guida.
So
Comments or questions? Excuse me?
the meeting minutes, there's no discussion? Because
No.
though it was pulled, there was no issue to discuss.
So we're accepting it because it was pulled.
Right.
Yeah, it was still pulled.
Okay,
whether that person is still here or not to discuss it, it was still pulled. So we're now saying accept it, so you can poll us.
okay. Bill Huko,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes,
All right. In progress FCA work and staff updates.
Sure. From a staff update point of view, we had a really successful start of school year. It started just a couple days before our last CORC meeting, but for a week or two after we get students and teachers back in there, there's always things that come up, and we've avoided any major issues, knock on wood. So school is off and running. We do have an operational excellence meeting coming up, conference, which is October 14th. And what that is where we meet with our, the operations group. Everybody under Joe meets with our teachers and vendors and gets together and talk about things going on in the industry, what we can do better as a group together. So that's a day-long event. It'll be at the West Point Middle School this year. So we're looking forward to that. That's all the updates. Do you have anything else, Dorothy, from a staff update?
No.
All right, in progress work. You can scroll down a little bit. That's dollars spent. Keeps going up every month as we go. I know this slide's important. We have a lot of people interested. As you can see, a lot of the red up at the top are on our CCNA contracts. And you'll see a lot of those are really low dollar values, close to $1 million or even a little bit less than that. That's because as we're moving down with the last 50 so schools or so with the referendum, these were the newer schools that needed less work. But it is a challenge because you have less available budget to do, they still need work. And so some of this stuff, we'll be working hard with our CCNA vendors to get this work done, scheduling that out. The blue stuff at the end, you'll see that's some larger projects that need to go out for an RFP. We have a couple transportation projects, phase 2 for Historic Carver and Historic Roosevelt. So those are upcoming. These are our active GMPs that will be coming soon in the next few months. As you can see, a lot still are under the CCNA contracts, but we do have a few that were RFPs. You can skip through the development activities. There's a lot there. You can read that. It's on the minutes online. As you can see, that's all the FCA projects. We did a lot of that work over the summer. So a lot of that work that's reported there was done over the summer. And it's just making the report now. And we're actually starting to plan for next summer with some of the long lead time items and get ramped up to do that. We do obviously work in between the summers. It's not just a summer activity. We work after hours, we work outside the school, but we do definitely look ahead to get as much done as the summer as we can. As you can see, some of the pictures, some of the work that we did this summer, parking lots, air handlers, all different kind of stuff, new flooring. So. West Acreage, this school is expected to be open next August. They've got things tilted. They're getting ready to stand up the panels. I think there's some pictures there. You can see all the underground work is done. They've got the panels poured and they're starting to stand those up. So that's looking good. Looking forward to that school.
Looks like you had a bright early morning pour.
Yeah, we're back to that where we're doing, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. pours. Pine Grove, the main new building was open for school. That was a success. Now they're moving forward with the demolition of the old building and some of the, site work, like parking lot and the landscaping and all that. So you can see the finished building. It looks great. That donut building on the left will be the one that will be demoed.
When's that starting?
They're doing it now. I don't know when the actual demo's starting. I think they're working through the logistics of that now. So that's some of the finished project, the lobbies and bathrooms and Windbrook modernization. This is in the middle of construction. Walls are tilted. They're starting to work on the roof now. I think there's some photos of that too. Yeah, you can see that's looking good. That also will be open for next school year in August. So you can see that's a little bit ahead of West Acreage. They got a head start.
And that's a ground up building too?
It was a modernization, so there is an existing building that's remaining on campus.
Right.
Yep. West Riv, the demo's done. This will not be open for August. This is the following. It'll be done in between the years, so we'll have to figure out exactly when we want to open. But that's moving forward. Demo's done. They're going to start working on underground now. So it looks like they have some foundations going. Roosevelt full service. This is phase one. Yeah, the new building's going great. There's some pictures. You can slide down there. That's the new building looking fantastic. You can see in the gym that's building on the north, we're still working through their lead remediation. On the right-hand side, you can see it's tinted. No, on the right-hand side of that top building, there, yeah, right there. So how that works is they basically have to fully encapsulate the lead paint as they remove it. They're in like, spacesuits out there with everything to get it all handled because it is disturbed. So they're remediating all that lead paint. So when we get done with that, we'll be free and clear to start working over in that building, the gym. But they're moving forward with the other two buildings in the meantime. So. Looking good. Seminole Trails, this was a core expansion. It opened for the start of school year. They were just working on a punch list. So this involved expanding the cafeteria, the clinic, some of the admin spaces. If you remember, these schools were designed for less students. And then we since added students to the schools. So the core spaces had to be upgraded to accommodate the extra students. So. Design and procurement. Let's spend a little time with Dorothy's stuff because we usually skip through it, but no, next slide. Thank you, Dorothy. But there's a lot of good things going on here. Some of the work that Dorothy does, and again, this is just a small sampling, but modulars, we constantly monitor demographics of schools of where we need extra space, where we can decommission space. So we move modulars around. Also for holding schools, obviously we use the modulars. We are doing several ball field lighting, replacing those with LED lights as we go. We've done a handful of schools now, and we'll continue that hopefully as we get money to do that, because it's obviously a lot more efficient, a lot more reliable. Some of those old fields.
Schools actually had no lighting on their ball fields.
That's true. Yep.
Brand new ground up.
Wow.
So they were really limited when they can have events. The marquee program, so we are doing new marquees throughout the whole district, going from the old, stick-up letters to a digital marquee. Seems archaic, but we still have a lot of those around. Started with mainly the high schools, then the middle schools. But we did have, if the schools were able to provide funding, we kind of moved them up the list, or a particular sign was in just such disrepair that they couldn't even use it, that may move it up the list. But eventually we'll get through all the schools. We have two vendors that are very good, but they're kind of limited on the amount that they can do at one time. So it's one school at a time. And as you can imagine, these schools all get permitted through different agencies, and some are pretty smooth and some take a lot more effort to get approval. So that's some of the challenges with the marquees. Re-roofing with, 180 schools and another 40 or so facilities. We're constantly re-roofing projects. Those are just a few that we have going on. We try to keep those roofs as long as we can, but those need replacement. The media center program, that's for all the high schools, and that's been very successful. We have, how many complete now, Dorothy? 6 or 7?
We did 5 in group 1, but then we had a couple that were done a few years ago. So probably 7 or 8, yes.
So eventually we'll get through all the high schools. We do 3 or 4 a year, depending on funds availability and how we can move those forward. But basically, I think you've seen pictures of those. This is an athletic field project that came through. There was a couple of questions on this one at one point. The Pahokee High School softball and baseball athletic fields, their fields just, they didn't even have an outfield fence. They didn't have a scoreboard. They didn't have, it's one of those things. So we're really trying to get that caught up with some of our other facilities. Jupiter High School is a new field house that was mainly funded by a donation, which was fantastic. So that's under construction now. And that's a ground up field house right next to the stadium. Doors and restrooms, that's ongoing throughout the district as needed. There's a lot of that type of work. Switchboard replacement, we have a program where we kind of go through and there's preventative maintenance that we do. And then eventually if the switchgear needs it enough, then we do a replacement. Those projects obviously don't come along that often, but when we do have to do them, it's critical that facilities can't operate without the switchgear.
But why wouldn't the timber trace switchgear have been part of the 18 different projects we did there?
So if you remember, the referendum work is just specifically, I don't remember, was that a pullout for that?
No, just the inspection and servicing of the switchgear was a pullout. And when they inspected it and looked at it, they said it's met its life expectancy. It could go anytime, so.
That's why those, the preventive maintenance and inspection is so critical. We try to keep on those once a year in every school and look at it and make sure that we stay ahead of it. Because as you know, if it goes and you're in big trouble. Forest Hill and Everglades, that's additional parking lots. We kind of monitor that as needed. Discovery Key in Forest Hill, there's drainage. As you know, drainage in South Florida is a big deal. So we constantly evaluate that. And that gets looked at once a year. Our BCS department looks at every single school, gives us what they call CSIRs, which is violations. And a lot of times those drainage issues show up on those reports and we get those fixed as we can, so.
Forest Hill High School, is that getting a new parking lot or it's just being looked at or what?
So it is getting a new parking lot. We had a parking lot there. They're expanding it out next to the old golf course.
Right.
So we're adding that school in particular is very short on parking and
yeah.
staff and space. So even adding 40, 50 spaces makes a big impact on just parking on the facility. So
I hear about it once a week from my daughter-in-law who's an AP there.
yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. So that's some of the stuff. Here's some pictures that go along with that. This was the Boca Field House, which wasn't in the above slide, but we did a fit out for that. So we had a field house that was basically just a shell empty. So they used it with no AC, nothing in there. So we went in there and were able to retrofit that out with some new lockers, air conditioning and finishes. So that's a great space. They actually had an event out there. This is K.E. Cunningham out in Canal Point. They had a pavilion. Provided a pavilion out in the field so that when the kids are out for recess, they have a restroom and a place to get under some more shade. So that was very successful, very important for that school. So those are some more of the minor project stuff that Dorothy has going on. And here's just some more pictures. As you can see, it's constant miscellaneous stuff. I need everything under the sun. So is there any questions?
Question I had, and it goes back to PC4 actually, but it's not on PC4. I see the Beck Group is a company I've seen a couple of times, I think, on selection committees. Were they on the CCNA list?
No.
So this went to an RFP?
Yes, that was an RFP.
John Cheshire will probably back me up on this, but I didn't see anything come out for any CORC members on that. This is the first I think I'm hearing about, and that's why I thought, wait a minute, why didn't I get a notification of that? They're not on the CCNA list.
We can follow up. I'll have to follow up with Barbara on it, but
John Cheshire.
Yeah, I don't recall that one be either coming to the selection committee. But my question was on page 3, I believe, if you can go back to page 3. And at the bottom of the list there, Dorothy, scroll down, please. Right there, the 5 in blue that are coming out with RFPs, they're all, it says January 2025, they're all coming out at the same time. That's going to put a strain on the 2 or 3 of us, the court members who volunteer for the selection committee. I don't know if anybody from purchasing is in the room, but can we spread that out a little bit? Because that's...
Yeah, there is nobody from purchasing, but I can comment on that. So that's a placeholder. We have a couple outside factors that we're looking on scheduling those. They probably won't come all out together. I'm almost sure of it. We have, for instance, the purchasing department is going to be, at the end of the year, the bid sync, which is Periscope now, is no longer offering that platform. So they're transitioning over to a new platform, which is going to affect the timing of it. Our transportation facilities, we're working with transportation about the logistics of how we can move buses between facilities and make it all work. So we're doing a little bit of upfront homework to make sure that's all going to work. So it's probably not, I'm sure it's not going to all shake out like that. But that's just a placeholder that we'd like to get those going as soon as we can.
Also the 2 there that are 30 million and 43 million. I don't know when you decide to use a final selection committee or not, but that's probably those two, and that'll be two separate meetings
Yes.
for shortlist and final selection. So again, yeah, they just need to be phased out a little bit. Thank you.
And just to add on to that, so the Delray Historic Carver Full Service and Roosevelt, we have partners involved with those, city and county partners that we're working through some items on, as well as some custodies, and since they're historic facilities, getting approvals there. So we're trying to time those out recently. So as soon as we don't know when some of that stuff is going to fall into place, but as soon as it falls into place, we can go with it. So it may be next week, it may be 6 months. We're hopeful, in that January timeline, but those are some question marks on those as well.
Virginia.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on how happy I am that Boynton Beach High School is finally going to get a digital marquee. Back in the late 90s, when we were working on that, the developer at that time would not allow it. And some 30 years later, they're finally, new developer out there, new owners, finally able to get the digital marquee. I learned that at the SAC meeting this week. So there is no problem doing it at Boynton High now, is there?
Not that I know of. I think
Not that I'm aware of either.
Okay.
Boynton's been very good to work with so far. There are some municipalities that are really challenging, takes a while, but you bring up a good point, because those marquee signs make a huge difference to the parents in the schools, how to communicate. Not everybody's reading their emails and checking that stuff. So they show up to pick up a kid and they find out about a SAC meeting and then they attend. So it's really critical to get that information out. And it's just so much easier for the schools to be able to update it digitally from their phone versus going out there and replacing letters that blow off and that kind of stuff.
I totally agree. And as I said, trying when I was with the city, working with those developers, trying so hard, and they were just horrible to work with. They resented that the high school was there amidst them and did everything they could to stymie it. But new owners are out there now in that area, and I'm really very pleased.
Okay. Any other comments, questions for Michael? All right. I don't think we had anything on follow-up. Did we, Dorothy?
Yes, actually we did. Number one, we started talking about this last month. It's our description of how we calculate overhead and profit.
Right.
And we decided to hold off until this month to discuss it because John wasn't here. And that was John's question.
So
way back.
And this is one that we can really get into the weeds about, but we wanted to highlight at least the big bullets that we have on our existing procedures. And this is what we've been doing it for a long time now. We are in the process of looking at our contract, and in particular items 3 and 4, we're looking at simplifying that going for the future, but we have to go through the channels to get that all worked out. But there's, this is how we do it now. So Mr. Cheshire.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, it's the first time I'm seeing this. I apologize. I didn't review it in advance, but this is from like over a year ago, if I recall right. And the issue was there was a large amount of unpurchased scope, it was called, and unused, I think, general conditions. And the question was, why isn't overhead and profit returned on those? I mean, just by the definition of unpurchased scope, it just sounds like there was scope that wasn't done. So maybe it's just a terminology thing, but you couldn't, there was no backup associated with that unpurchased scope or unused general requirements that I recall. And that was really the question, why was there unpurchased scope? And if I recall correctly, there was another closeout earlier that the contractor did return the overhead and profit on those items. So it was inconsistent with a previous one. And I noticed today, I believe there was a closeout where a portion of the overhead and profit was returned with the closeout funds. So it's just inconsistent. It needs to be, this doesn't really solve or address what the confusion was, at least confusion to me.
No.
I'm not sure about the incentive to the CM to save money it sounds like he's being given overhead and profit because he overestimated something, which would be dangerous to do, I think. So I guess those are my comments. I'm still not sure we know what we're doing here, or at least I know.
Yeah, and I think we definitely appreciate your comments, and we tend to agree with that it hasn't been 100% consistent, and this isn't real clear on how to do that. That's why with these and really some of your comments spurred to look at some of those contract changes to make this. So this is how we do it now, but in the future, what we're going to bring forward is a simplified version of this where it is consistent and all overhead profit is included and returned, and it's very clean. So we'll be bringing those forward to review with you. So this isn't the solution. This is kind of just how we're doing it now. And the 2% thing really confuses things on projects because we have some that, it really holds up the process. So we're looking at getting rid of that and as well, just to make it easy. Everything's either included up front with overhead and profit and returned with overhead and profit, or not included with overhead and profit. And as we process those, we include overhead and profit on each one. So we're looking at two options, but either way, it'll be reconciled 100% at the end. So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah, I just think it should be simple.
Yes, we agree.
You get paid overhead and profit for doing the work. If the work doesn't get done, you get the overhead and profit back.
We agree. Yeah.
Simple.
Yep.
Makes the math real easy.
Yep.
Okay.
David, I have another thing for follow-up, please.
Yes.
A few months ago, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, we pulled an item because there was a escalation. It was all approved by staff and ready to go to the board, but there was no backup on why the contractor was getting the escalation. I mean, he asked for hundreds of thousands, I don't remember, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he just said, here's my old price, here's my new price. Anyway, the item was pulled, and I don't believe we've seen that back yet. I was just wondering what the status of that is.
I thought staff took that to the board because it had to go to the board, even though CORC had objected.
Boy, I sure hope that's not true.
I thought that's what happened because it had to be done. And I know Dave said he didn't want to do that, but I thought that's what happened, which is I think why we never got it back as a resubmittal.
Well, that was true of an item maybe a year or so ago where we wanted it pulled and it wasn't, and the board approved it, and we asked at the following meeting, and the answer was, well, just because CORC says to pull it doesn't mean we have to. And that upset me at the time, and if this has happened again, this is going to be really upsetting. So I'd like to have a follow-up on that particular item for next month.
Well, I think we have
to
staff
look back
dig back through, what was presented to CORC, what the minutes state, and find that item, and then give us a report of what happened to it.
I know there was one, I don't remember which one you're talking about. There was one that we pulled and it wasn't resolved yet. So that's why it's never come back yet. But I don't know which particular one. We'll have to.
I guess that's the question though, because that was literally at least 6 months ago when I'm thinking, wait a minute, somebody's not getting paid because of that. Yeah, just dig into it rather than us making assumptions.
Yes, please.
But Dorothy, please put that down as something for our next meeting that we'd like a response on.
I will.
All right, anything else on follow-up you want to tell us about? The number 3, it looks like you now have something scheduled to take care of the baseball fields.
We've got a lot of things in the works. We actually just had funding approved for the new lights that are going to go out there because they have no lights now. And we just got funding approved for new fencing, the outfield fencing, the sod work and everything that we're going to do in the new scoreboard out there. So now we have to go out and get the bids and things like that for those. We actually have a proposal on the lights. But we may not be able to do them until we get the fencing installed.
So what's up with the baseball field? I thought it was the
The backstop was.
Backstop?
Yeah.
The dugouts. I thought
The dugouts, we replaced 6 of the 8 dugouts.
Oh.
On these minor projects, so we don't go to a CM and get it all in one package. So
Right.
there's all these different pieces. But the 6 of the 8 dugouts were done. The issue with the backstop of the baseball field had to get resolved, which you do have it now resolved we're going to move that forward 15 feet because it's a middle school and a high school combined out there. So it's a little bit different case. And now we're able to build the last 2 dugouts that fit with that and do the fencing around it. We didn't want to do that until we worked out the
Exactly.
location of it. So.
Exactly. Okay, John Cheshire.
Yeah, on number 4 there, I thought last month or maybe the month before that was going to come back earlier. Are you still looking for comments or questions from committee members regarding our concerns there?
I think Mr. Sanchez was taking the lead on that. And I know he missed a session. He was out of town for his 60th birthday, and then he's back. I think he's back now, but I don't think he's here yet. So that's why we wanted to push it
Now
where he can attend.
disclosed his age in public here.
No,
Okay.
it's public record. No,
There you go, Michael.
I hope I'm in that shape at 60. So that's why we pushed a little bit so he can, because he's taking the lead on that. So
Okay, are you still looking for comments or questions from?
I think he has what he needed from input, and he was Joe is on. Good.
Yeah, I'm actually in the parking lot. They come in, so I could say that. Yeah, I appreciate it going back to October because I was trying to get something together for this month, and I just need to have an internal meeting with all our staff with purchasing and legal. We did have a meeting back in early August, just to clarify that what we're proposing is legal. The new law that just passed in this past legislative session does not prohibit us from awarding points for location, which we already do. But I want to get CORC's input on how many points that we use in each one of those criteria, because small points will make a small difference, bigger points will make a bigger difference, relative to all the other points that are a part of the criteria. So that's what I plan on bringing back in October is getting some thought on how much should the local preference, or not, I shouldn't say local preference, that's the wrong term. how much should location, the location criteria weigh into as a percentage or as a factor relative to everything else. So that's the key point that I'd like to get CORC's input on.
Okay.
But to answer your question, John, if you have questions or things you want us to address in that, just send me an email with that information and I'll make sure Mr. Sanchez has a chance to look at it.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Okay, that was it on follow-up, I think, right? Nothing else was left on there we didn't talk about. All right, any other general discussion items by CORC members? All right, date of our next meeting is on your agenda, October 17th. Virginia, any issues with minutes?
Minutes were very good.
Okay, good. Anyone else with issues on the minutes? All right, minutes are now accepted. If nothing else, last chance. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we had on the big one. I know we had a selection committee up, but I don't know.
I'm notified.
There was another one. Remember last month?